very patiently waiting for the exact right timing and the coordination. Definitely there in that last game. So I don't know if we're going to be seeing a poke composition from this Samsung roster again. Ezreal banned out by KT in game number 2.
Just a Fate banned away as well. These are some of the picks that Samsung have put to good use so far in their season. Not able to pick up a win in the first game. Were competitive to a point, but then, as is often the case between Engage and Poke, if Engage ever gets a foothold in the mid-game, say goodbye, Poke game.
Yeah, that is very true. So KT this game, are they going to try and first pick the Kog'Maw or the Braum here? Annie will be the ban, and there's the Kog'Maw. So you got to think they're going to take Braum with this new found fascination with first picking it. They do have some other options, such as Rek'Sai or Gragas or perhaps even Alistar.
Victor, maybe an outside bet, but I don't feel like Nagne's Victor is really the cornerstone of a lot of their victories. He's played a lot of that champion. I believe he's 5-4 for this season, but Braum seems to loom as the first pick champion when the likes of Kog'Maw and maybe those auto first picks like Ryze are just not on the table.
Well, this is locked in. We will have seen Braum first pick on blue side in 4 out of our 5 games tonight.
Crazy.
Yeah, very interesting turn of events. And it was drafted in the first round in every single game. So the only other champion to be taken first tonight was Rek'Sai, which certainly is an option here.
Rek'Sai has been first pick status since release, almost it feels like. Of course, fallen in and out of popularity, but often looms a bit like Thresh to return as a first round pick. Just does so much with her kit, does Rek'Sai.
Yep, and so the Azir was a crown favorite before it started being mass banned. They will take the Braum and the Azir. Nagne going to have to come up with something different this game. Can always just go right back to the Victor. No problem.
It's probably not going to be the Yasuo. We're seeing Yasuo tonight, though, so maybe we've had our fill of Yasuos for the evening. Wave clear wars in mid does seem to loom as the matchup. What does KT want to do? Because the balanced engage comp certainly worked out. I mean, there's an argument. Just go Maokai and let it all sort itself out from there.
If somebody wants to go on that pick again, it would be his 12th game of the season on Maokai.
9-2 at the moment, so you can see the draw because they do a whole hell of a lot of winning, and his KDA is insane on that champion.
Sivir. Will Arrow go back to his Scuttle Crab ways? I think he will.
The answer is basically always yes. He excites us with Kog'Maws. Kog'Maws banned away. The Corki, it was fine in the end. It didn't end up being a big factor. And oh, we're going to see engage wars between Alistar and Braum.
Yep, Alistar and Sivir. So KT holding off. They want to see what is going on in a little bit more of this composition before they commit to either of their solo lane pickups. Even though they already know what the enemy mid laner is going to be, there are some questions such as, how safe is Victor going to be?
We don't know the answer to that just yet. Flexibility in the first 5 picks, nothing revealed whatsoever. So I might be considering a jungler. Don't want to do brawling. Lee Sin could be a pickup. Eve is very mechanically talented. I wouldn't mind seeing the Lee Sin come through.
And Fury, one of the better Lucian players that we have in this league. And when we talk about those lane dominant players like OQ and Fury, they are going back to the Lucian in a lot of these matchups, particularly when there's that chance to actually lane against that Sivir. Now, with the Lee Sin, we've seen this more. Lyra actually had 2 outstanding games on Lee Sin just the other day against Spenu. You build that warrior enchant, you can still do a lot of damage early, but is a bit hard to play against that Rek'Sai who can match you with some of that early pressure. So Victor likely going to be the pick for Nagne. Is a bit dangerous, especially post Azir level 6 where that all-in with the Lee Sin could be quite dangerous.
So what is the top laner they want to pair with what seems to be the Victor that we've had flashed for a lot of this pick and ban phase? Very balanced comp from Samsung, not really tipping towards anything. It's clearly not going to be a poke comp this time, going to be more balanced team fight comp.
Well, they don't have engage yet though,
True.
So that is the issue. So taking away the Maokai may mean that Samsung doesn't get the most reliable engage as they take the Maokai and the Victor. So very standard from KT.
was wondering if they were going to peace out and go towards the Shen, but maybe they're going to think about lane dominance in basically all of the lanes. There is the argument they could win 3 lanes and the jungle matchup if they lock in the Fizz.
Yes, definitely on the table. They are going to lock it in. But after Sunday's performance in the last game up against Kube, where he managed to bully his way to a very large lead with the help of Score, we're going to have to see more ganks in the bottom side from Eve. Now, Samsung has a really good 4-1 split push going on. If that Fizz starts to win, the Azir and the Lucian are going to be great when it comes to quickly knocking down turrets and providing a lot of siege pressure. But still, great wave clear from KT, so it's not going to be easy.
It's not like Samsung have wonderful wave clear, but certainly very active wave clear between Azir and Lucian. So it might not be instant like the Sivir, but a lot of answers on both sides. Really, the big question mark is how do you get through the laning phase if you're KT? Because Maokai reliably is being beaten by the Fizz. Azir in the early levels has an advantage over Victor, especially before that Hex Core upgrade. And we already mentioned Lucian's a lane counter to the Sivir.
Well, I think a lot of it is going to come down to how well these teams are able to lane swap, especially. That's going to be the priority for KT Rolster. They end up in standard lanes. Samsung may be able to just pressure them to the win. But that said, we go late. Samsung, again, going to be finding themselves in a situation where they can't dictate when and where team fights start very easily, barring some sort of crazy flank from Kube and Eve that kicks a carry out. So we are going to go into game 2, KT versus Samsung right now. Well, Samsung stuck with KT in the early game in the last one, trying to use that poke composition, but the flanks ended up outfoxing them in the late game. Samsung switches up their strategy. Now they don't want to group at all.
Now they have all of the early game Monte Cristo. You know, they do have the potential to take over this game. No better jungler than Lee Sin to really cap off what is an early game focus, split push focus comp. Not to say that late game team fights are completely out of their purview, they just need to be in a scenario where Cuvée is at all times dictating what Someday is doing. If Cuvé's all over Someday, I don't even mind the team fighting as I see you audibly wince to the left.
Oh, it's just, I don't think that Kube is going to be in a good position not to just get blown up. There's so much crowd control. Even though he does have that playful trickster, the Victor burst can just kind of one-shot him. So it does make me a bit nervous.
Look, I can understand being a bit apprehensive, but Maokai can get really taken out of a game by Fizz. Only Rise has shown that sort of level of just taking over the game, pushing down turrets, you know, being able to take inhibitors as the enemy top laner watches. Is that going to happen this game, given the prowess from Someday on Maokai and, you know, a good ganking jungler and Rek'Sai? Probably not. But if there's ever a scenario where you're swapping inner turrets or inhibitor turrets for a Maokai to impact a team fight, that's a potential one game for Samsung.
Could be. And the lane swap, though, looks like Someday just going to take the third little Raptors there and now head out to the red to help out the score. And there is Peekaboo just being annoying.
Wants some experience, but no other skills available. Can't just get in there and cow slap the last hit onto one of those little red buff minions, so just has to back away.
Hello, Luna. Actually going to get some nice concussive blows down there and will proc it for the stun.
Hits him with a chair. Pretty sure if the ref saw that, that would be a disqualification.
Is that how it works?
It is. If the ref sees it, it's a disqualification. If you've noticed at all in wrestling, I know you haven't watched a lot of it, the ref very often looking somewhere other than the guy with the chair. It's a bit brazen, this Braum, I have to say.
One of the other wrestlers just slips a blindfold on him. The opportune moment.
Usually maybe the attractive woman has to have a discussion with the referee at the side of the ring. There's all sorts of things happening. Wrestling's a weird and wonderful place.
Can you hit somebody with a ladder? Is that the same rule?
If he doesn't see it, yeah.
All right.
It's a bit harder to hide the ladder when you're done with it. It's happened, though.
I believe you.
The most fun thing about wrestling is that, you know, the championship belt, it's a nice meaty thing, but apparently if you hit people with it, despite it being leather and questionably heavy, knocked out every time.
Wow. I mean, it does have a lot of metal on it.
It does.
So score, going to face a bit of harassment right here from Luna as he moves into the top side. We are going to have a 2v1, it would appear, with Kuve. Going to get a little bit of support from the Braum, and this situation, this is kind of what KT wanted here. They don't have to worry about getting denied very heavily in the early laning phase.
All of the wave clear versus none of the wave clear, as Sivir and Fizz were trained in the middle of our screen.
Yeah, that is might be pretty bad right there. Not a lot of ways they can help. Score just slowly moving forward through the lane brushes as the vision gets chained right there. He wants to make sure that Arrow is going to be okay, that he's not going to get all in. They have a ward there. Here we go. Nope, Kuve and Luna not committing to that. They have no idea that Score is there.
Still not wanting to get on top of Arrow. He's looking so damn tasty. I'm surprised they haven't called the bluff here.
I think that they are very wary about the possibility of getting Rek'Side. But that said, some CS will be lost into the turret after that little maneuver. And we get a little bit of a wave reset here from Arrow and some more time just farming in the top lane. Someday should take a CS advantage off of this wave in comparison to Kuve.
Still a decent kill pressure. You wouldn't think that Maokai and Alistair would have that much damage between the two of them, but with the high early values, Lucian has to be a little bit careful. Kind of nice to be in a world where Lucian, saw bans in the previous series and is prized pick here in Series 2.
Well, yeah, I think it just comes down to the players that we have. Of course, whenever we're talking about OQ and Fury, you're going to get a few more of these Lucian bans than we might otherwise see.
We've seen the no damage Lucian games. They happen just like Corki, but man, when OQ goes off specifically on Lucian, so much damage.
Fury is no slouch himself. I've watched many a game where Fury has been impressively carrying on that champion, but without the standard lane matchups, he's just not going to have the same punch and early game potential.
Well, he's in a 1v2.
Yeah.
He's doing the best that he can. If you look at the CS values, doing very capably. In fact, both these guys, you'd think Arrow would have the advantage with just slightly more ranged wave clear, but very even between the AD carries in this weird position. Maybe they're getting a little bit of sympathy for their top laners, finding themselves in eventual 1v2s. As Score's there to relieve pressure, but not much happening around the rift.
Just waiting right there, being very patient. He is seen on a ward right by his Gromp, so they have every idea of where he is, but they're going to have to back off as Score just goes into the tri-brush to recall. They don't know if he's going to be waiting around.
Green ward they had, that Peekaboo, I believe Luna put down, has gotten so much value. First, it gave them the idea that perhaps they were in that situation where Rek'Sai was in the top brush, and then now just getting the exact positioning on Rek'Sai. So, a very, very valuable green ward as wave clear, wave clear, wave clear.
Indeed. Score coming back down to the bottom side alongside Eve. Not much going on, actually. Nagne doing a good job of CSing in the mid lane. A lot of times we see Victor is just bullied out early by the Azir poke. Not going to be the case this game. It's like a pretty passive time there.
So, see the culling used by Fury. Obviously wants to go back and pick up an item at 36 CS. Not sure if he quite has BFs or gold. In fact, it's significantly behind Sivir.
Oh, nice flash there from Crown. They had just hit 6. He was looking for that Emperor's Divide, but Nagne had some fast fingers to avoid that ultimate.
It's actually smart by Fury. He went back, drew out the recall from Someday, and now was able to just farm up a little bit more, pick up the CS towards that BF, so he did not have the gold to pick it up earlier. Listen hasn't impacted any lanes. In fact, 2 ganking junglers, surprisingly, just been relegated to farming their jungles.
Sometimes that can happen with these lane swaps if you don't have a good opportunity and no one is willing to make a counterable aggressive move. Someday, heading up with 2 Doran's rings and 2 ruby crystals. The raw stats are real in this top side.
So much early health.
That's actually a really good idea because with the mixed damage coming in from Kuve, of course he has that magic damage from his abilities, but he's actually runed for AD. Now here we go, flash up, Crown is dead. And Peekaboo actually snags the kill in the end with the Pulverize.
Headbutt Pulverized to death.
And they knew the flash was down, so why not go for that play? The cleanse not going to be doing you very much good on a knock-up and the instant burst from Victor, so they take a nice little advantage right there. Crown instead picking the cleanse this game. Remember last game he went heal, which actually is more useful in the lane matchup versus the Victor or barrier. But in this circumstance, I think he has to respect the Maokai, which is something he did not do on the Victor last game, and he got locked down quite frequently in the back lines.
Early rotational play from KT has really paid off. You know, of course, we just saw the kill in mid, but just, you know, going back to the top lane matchup, someday all of the early game items, and Cuvée hasn't found a time to shop at all, so just sitting on Door and Blade. This is actually a lopsided matchup towards the Maokai as things stand.
And not only that, but BF Sword versus Pickaxe in the bottom lane, so Fury wasn't able to hit the recall timing he wanted to, and now he is going to be even less likely to bully. So KT coming out of this lane swap in a very good position, considering that Samsung really was playing for the early game. Someday, as I was saying earlier, with this Fizz, he's going to be doing that raw magic damage from his abilities, but he has the runes and masteries to pump up his attack damage and now the Sheen. So flat health, very, very good in this particular situation. And this is a little bit of a new build against the Fizz that we're seeing from Someday as a sort of triage against early game damage.
Speaking of triages, the tree gets on top of Cuvée. I realized that was terrible, but I heard it in my head and had to go for it. Able to playful Trickster away.
Miss on the Winter Smite right there. There comes the Glacial Fissure, but they really can't do much. Peekaboo able to hold on to his ultimate throughout all of that. So they traded the Glacial Fissure for just the On the Hunt. Did get a favorable damage trade down, but that was about it.
The unique thing about Ruby Crystals now, it feels like pretty much the best item in the game builds into Giant's Belt, builds into the Catalyst, you know, went for the Catalyst in the early start here.
Built into Cowl.
Just builds into everything, so very happy to just get those Ruby Crystals for as much early pressure and delaying any potential for Cuvée to go for those all-ins and try and dictate that 1v1 matchup. In the meantime, Samsung, they've managed to get complete pressure over this Dragon, despite there being a pink ward sticking out. Not enough for any sort of contest to come through. KT.
If you're KT, though, you're not going to really mind giving up that first Dragon. It's not that big of a deal for you because you are going to be confident in your late game anyway. Nice trade there with Peekaboo onto the cancel on the culling. Eve also going for the Warrior Enchant. I really prefer to see this on Lee Sin. Yes, he didn't get it until after the Sight Stone, so prioritizing the vision, but it's just such a good item on Lee Sin. Make the plays on the lanes right now. That's how you're going to win. Someday gets fished. A little bit late, actually. It's a late fish.
I think maybe he was trying to wait out the 10 seconds and try and get the bonus damage not to be completely negated, because, of course, 20% bonus damage, 20% reduced damage. Not the best interaction for Cuvée, and doesn't have a lot of sustain. Remember, with the advent of, you know, Samsung basically expecting the lane swap, started Doran Blade, and now doesn't have any sort of flask to really keep himself healthy. And he's getting poked out by all the early stats that Someday's picked up.
And Score right there on the push. Void rushes into this top side. That means they either get a dive or he protects Someday while he pushes forward against a counter gank. Great positioning from both of the junglers here in the necessary places at the right times.
Yeah, thought about rotating left lane, but then just been forced to go back to mid. I'll still be the first person to impact it.
Uh-oh. Well, Peekaboo not going to commit to any topside play. Instead, they're just going to scare Cuvée off. And Score now wants the Krugs. He gets the Krugs. Eve left watching.
Definitely got a lot more respect for Eve than he had to show against either of the junglers that Jinae were able to field, or Spenu, for example. In game 1, Italy was just farm mode. Unfortunately, Lee Sin has as well. I don't know if that's Score's reputation, but man, he's holding down enemy junglers either directly or indirectly.
Yeah, they're not going to take the tower, though, even though they were able to zone Cuvée off. They just make him miss a wave of XP. Someday actually going for a Righteous Glory right now, so not building any resist. Luna caught out. Oh, Luna, goodbye. And there's the knock-up. Gravity Field going to zone him out right there. Jumps to Eve and has to flash, but that's going to be not quite a kill. And there's no dragon, so KT not going to be able to do too terribly much with this besides get some wards down. Luna actually surprisingly living through that.
And Fury, 23 CS behind, now can't have any lane pressure because he just saw multiple members from KT go to his blue side jungle. Look, if he's the loser of all of this, you know, he's going to really bemoan the fact that You know, he's been doing fine in his lane with no pressure whatsoever, and the game's being played around him to the point where he's behind to an Avarice Blade AD carry.
Yeah, that is not good when he picked up that BF sword after the pickaxe. Now the pressure coming in. They're going to get the turret. Arrow and Peekaboo grab the gold. So early leads tilting towards KT, 2,000 gold, the advantage. And this composition designed to win lane and crush the early game from Samsung not panning out.
Unfortunately, it's been equal or losing lane, and, you know, Lee Sin slowly building the warrior enchant. It just feels like if you build it at 15 minutes without impacting any lanes, if you just pick Lee Sin and are 0-0-0 at 14 minutes into the game, you just missed a window that is really your only claim to relevance as a champion.
Yeah, especially when you're just going for the damage build too. I mean, I do think that this is the way to play it, but you have to be able to find openings on your opponents and have a willingness to play aggressively. But I think Samsung was sort of living and dying by the lane swap here. When they didn't get standard lanes, it really did hurt their chances in this game.
Perfect hex called Rush comes through from Nung, and we don't see this very often. He had the 2 upgrades. We don't often see any more gold spent into it. Of course, if he does hit that gravity field, you know, the pull into the middle might be a relevant CC. Of course, the ult will last more ticks. It's just strange to see. Maybe it was just filling his inventory with potions and wards just meant that the opportunity cost of throwing in any more ability power like a blasting one just wasn't what he wanted.
Yeah, it's weird too, because at one time you could say, well, maybe he just did that because he couldn't afford a needlessly large rod, but that's like not really true.
I mean, the difference between 1,000 and 1,250 gold is negligible. That's just an extra wave, if that. So very surprising to see.
I hope it works out for him. I hope we see the early gravity field play where everyone just gets sucked in and then Rek'Sai knocks them up.
Can you imagine
and then Arcane Smash?
Rek'Sai Alistair into... Oh my goodness.
It could be truly epic.
Right, we're ready to be made believers by now.
This is the play I want to see. So 5-man gravity field. Everyone gets sucked in the middle. Rek'Sai and Burrow. Pulverize, Arcane Smash, and then all the time it's Boomerang Blade and Ricochet with a Chaos Storm on top.
So, like, why were they all standing in the gravity field to start that all off?
You got to go for the lucky play sometime. Wow, Arrow just going to walk right into a brush with Eve, has to use the Summoner heal just to get away. And he's still going. There's the kick on the hunt, forces the flash, and here comes the culling. Awkward plays, but Peekaboo is here to make a play onto Fury. Nice flash on the headbutt.
And the kick flash was really nice for me, but doesn't get the advantage. Nangne shows up with that perfect tech score and gets the kill.
There you go. Justified right there.
So much worth. To be fair, it's super annoying when you're walking away and still the perfect hex score keeps up with you. So it did get some nice chip damage onto Crown, but not seeing that big W just yet.
The epic Victor W. Well, that little skirmish, and thanks to Samsung committing so hard into the bottom side and Nagne having that cutoff, will mean the Dragon goes to KT Rolster as they continue to expand their lead. Their gold lead now up by a further 1,000. And here we go, score gets Azired, and here comes a TP actually. Fizz going to get into the big score, has to run. Arrow and Peekaboo are there, Someday there too. So it's 5 versus 4 in favor of KT right now. They just need to disengage. Don't need to go crazy. Nice spell shield onto the Sonic Wave, and KT smoothly just going back into the mid lane to defend.
Dragon's not spawned yet. Just looking for some wave here to come through. It's very strong from Samsung. It is kind of being bled out of this game, though. 3,000 gold behind when you've picked for lane just because of smart swapping by KT presents a pretty big problem for Samsung.
Yeah, you could definitely say that, and they just don't have the siege at this point to get going. This Fizz, if he groups, is still sort of useless. He's very squishy.
I mean, he's got a Trinity Force and nothing else. Grouping is not what he's picked for. He's just used his summon a teleport. Look, there's just so much early stats, though, coming through from Someday. Okay, no Spectre's Cowl, but I remain to be convinced that Cuvée will be bossing around this tree this game.
Yeah, especially with how much attention Score has played to this top side this entire game, ever since we saw this 1v1 come through after the initial swap.
does this Fizz top loom to be kind of like the Evelyn jungle, where we thought, okay, Evelyn jungle super effective when people don't know how to play around it. Then suddenly teams had to figure it out. Okay, there's still times for Evelyn jungle, but it feels like the must-pick, must-ban time has passed. Is this top lane Fizz versus Maokai counterpick matchup? Look, we know the potential, but teams are getting better and better at playing around it. And we're not seeing, you know, the Marin Flame horizons being passed recently, at least.
Yes, that is true. Marin did win a couple of games versus Ku in that matchup, but it wasn't like he had those big-time solo kills that he really stylishly debuted on with that champion. It's definitely less of a sure thing these days as we see some of these builds like the one that Someday showed off in this game, especially when there's not that early bullying that keeps the Maokai too terribly behind in gold. Sure, Someday's having to play more reserve now, but still doing all right.
Yeah, at the cost of nothing is kind of the big consideration. Is not losing his turret. There's no Trinity Force procs coming onto the enemy turret. You're getting free farm, are you, Kuve? But you know, you mentioned this in particular. Always kind of a question as to what Fizz can get done in a team fight unless he's causing significant lane pressure.
Eve has just been seen by wards this entire game. He will be sussed out very quickly. They want Someday to push forward now that they know that the wave is going to be reversing soon. It's going to be a long wait for Eve, though.
It's a game of frustration. Still 0-0-0 on Lee Sin at soon to be 20 minutes.
They're going to dive him, actually. There's the fish going down. Someday's going to pop his ult right after that. Peekaboo's already here. Someday getting low. Will Twisted advance onto Eve, and Eve just getting knocked around right now. Nope. Peekaboo will get the kill. Kuve now has to deal with this Nagne Victor in his top side, and by can't actually get out of this one at all. Score will take the second kill. Arrow already in the mid lane. He's there to prep the wave clear just in case Samsung commits. They read that from so far away, and very patient play from KT to just react first.
So let's just try and take a side. Okay, what did they have? What was the information they had? Of course, they saw the ward in the second brush knowing Lee Sin was coming into lane. Instantly, Peekaboo bounding his way up top with the Moby boot. Instantly, they have their mid laner react first to the ensuing kills that they can pick up, and they have their AD carry there for wave clear. So you're talking about prepping 2 or 3 minutes ahead. Okay, that was maybe 45 seconds to a minute, but masterful rotations from KT.
Yeah, very nicely played. And the thing is, even if Lee Sin had recalled in the brush, that was at least one kill if Kuve didn't back off. And I think they were inferring, well, if Kuve isn't backing off, then Lee Sin is probably already here. Therefore, we're just going to send 4 guys into the top side. We send our wave clear to a different lane, control the map, pick up a kill or two, and now we're going to be very well situated for the next Dragon Spawn. Uh-oh, Luna actually getting knocked back and knocked up. Taking a lot of damage right there, but is able to dissuade Score and Peekaboo from following up too severely with the help of Eve and Fury.
Actually keeps his ultimate available. We didn't have to use that before the crucial dragon fight.
Oh, Crown, here we go. Knocked back with the Emperor's Divide, but there is Arrow.
Oh.
Great flash.
Nice aggressive straight to be Sin from Arrow.
And look at this too. There was almost no risk to that flash because Peekaboo was in the blue side jungle, so they knew that if Arrow flashed forward right there, there was not going to be any chance to follow up whatsoever from Samsung. So great comms from KT as they look to continue to snowball these objectives.
This is where things get
Void
ugly.
Rush, this fish, Void Rush, here we go. Score on the other side of the map right now. Kuve trying to dance around underneath the turret. There's the old pop for a little bit of extra damage. Kuve is getting boxed in, Peekaboo is here. Goodbye. Score gets another.
And this is the reality. Honestly, it looked like Maokai was going to win the 1v1 anyway, but the ensuing help guaranteed the kill. Samsung's not winning these lane matchups, Monte Cristo, and doesn't look like they're going to win this game.
No, too far behind now, and with the precision at which KT is playing the map, they just continue to punish these desperate moves by Samsung as they try to claw their way back into this game. Someday now working on a Frozen Heart. So many wards in the inventory of KT Rolster.
If we just talk about the time economy, I know we don't have a direct stat for this, but the amount of time that Eve has been trying to get a gank and just failing miserably, still no kill involvement barring his own death this series, and the likes of Peekaboo, who seems to just casually wade into combat wherever he goes. I think that's just a shot calling reality. I just think KT are that much further ahead of Samsung that even though Samsung, much more solid team, they still have a lot to aspire to and a lot to learn from KT.
I think what's scariest about KT is when we see them get ahead. Remember that 2-0 they had over Jin Air, where Jin Air only got 1 kill in a best of 3.
How can I forget it? That was as one-sided the series. Its score was caught out, but they have the damage taken down.
Yeah, they have the kick, they have the TP. Score actually just going to flash out right there. A little bit of an awkward
Maokai
delay.
time.
And here comes the Maokai onto Luna. Kube going to be caught out there too, and there is Kube's death. 2 for 0. Score playing it a bit fast and loose, but hell, his team is there to get him the kills, and that'll be the first kill of the game for Samsung, but it comes at the cost of their AD carry in trade for a support someday. May not survive this one. There is an Azir turret in the mid lane. He doesn't have that option to back down towards his team.
Not ideal to pass the kill score over to Eve, but that's all they're able to do. So we see a 3 for 2 trade overall in the advantage of KT, and the Dragon. Pink ward even plopped down, uncontested.
Yeah, as I was saying about KT, I think what's interesting is that when they get an advantage, they are able to snowball it so efficiently. As we take a look at this fight.
And look, Samsung stopped doing damage for a second. They were respecting the oncoming course. Maybe that was just a shock call to get the hell out, but it means that Score doesn't die, and as the fight goes on, Cuvée just completely useless despite having a CS advantage this whole game.
Exhaust Maokai ult, not going to lead to a good time for a Fizz. So I'm going to try it again. KT, when they get that lead, we can see them just doing so much work on the map. They completely shut down Jin Air. Even in game 1 against SK Telecom, once they started to get into the enemy jungle, Bengi and Wolf really didn't have a chance against Score and Peekaboo's control over the pace of the game. And we're seeing it again here. They didn't come out to an early game advantage in the last one, but this one they really, really have. And they just seem like they cannot be beaten right now when they get ahead.
I think I agree with you. If in the first 5 minutes you give them an inch, they will take that proverbial mile, whether it's going and just dumping on your jungler, as they've done against the likes of Catch, as they've done against the likes of Chaser, you know, definitely differing levels of jungle talent right there, or just in their rotational play. Whenever they get ahead, they're setting things up for the victory in 2 minutes, the victory in 5 minutes, the win conditions they've set up from Champion Select. It's the sign of a top team.
Absolutely is. So, big lead. Big lead.
I mean,
7K.
big lead, and even the itemization's not helping Samsung. Trinity Force, look, it's nice damage, but it's not helping them in team fights. The Warrior enchant from Lee Sin's not scaling any further into the game, and that's the only hope and prayer that Samsung have, is scaling for what, on paper, is a very, very tricky 5v5 to win, and unless Fizz picks up some more items, almost impossible to get into that backline.
Seems like it is a far cry for the Samsung team to actually pull out a victory. And they've also had to spend a lot of money on things like the Home Guard enchant from Kube, which is further delaying how tanky he can actually be. And he needs a Frozen Heart more than he needs that cowl, but
that's the world he lives in, Monte Cristo.
that is the world he lives in.
A lot of things he needs. He's got damage, but he's going to slowly split push away at the top. Of course, not AP Fizz, so although he's got 5 points now into the Playful Trickster, still takes time to clear waves, and Maokai show up late, get a couple of gromps, and clear a wave.
Well, they have all the wave clear here. Glory Pop just to zone him off, and they want to get some free damage onto the tower. They will get that. Very poor Glacial Fissure from Luna is easily spell shielded by Arrow.
Yeah, the Brom's certainly not been a massive factor, although there's not really a lot of ranged auto attacks to proc the damage or proc the concussive blows. Remember, it's only Lucian and Azir as ranged auto attackers, and they've had so many threats they've had to respect, specifically the Maokai. The Brom would hardly mention his name all game.
Yep. That priority first round of the draft on the red side for Samsung, but it's just not really working out. It doesn't really synergize very well with the rest of their team. No engage. And Crown, oh boy, the noose is tightening right now. Luna gonna block some of that damage. On the hunt already popped. Crown is just surrounded right now. Has to use that Azir, and now he's gonna try and make an escape, but guess what? Nagne's there. Meanwhile, Arrow just starting to clean this one up. Score has to fall back. Score will fall and get shut down, but Kube pays for it. And now here comes the follow-up as Peekaboo uses that ultimate. Where's the Twisted Advance? Not gonna come through, and actually, Crown manages to live, surprisingly.
Peekaboo was 10 seconds away from the flash. Flash headbutt pulverized loomed as the re-engage tool that KT needed. So 1-for-1 overall is the trade. Not bad for Samsung, buying time. But time towards what?
Yeah, time towards what? And the fact of the matter is that Score has Void Rush available. They could just rush Dragon. Kuve will have TP by that time, so very narrow timing window avoided by Samsung and Kuve. Arrow fails his flash.
Ooh, that's a bad look for Arrow. Solo killed by Crown, just too aggressive with his recall.
It was a silly place to recall.
It's always that level of greed where like, I'll just step out a little bit. I'll have so much more time to get my sweet items. I'll be back to kill. Oh dear.
I've made a terrible mistake.
I think I've made a terrible mistake. Definitely ringing through Arrow as he's just sad about his grace.
His first death this game, though. KT certainly hasn't given up much to the enemy team, and Score not really going to be able to defend this by himself, but with his friend the tree, they will not actually do anything.
So that's another bit of global gold, but still a lot to arrest. 2 turrets behind, a dragon behind, and 5,000 gold is the lead for KT. Interesting build from Nagne. Just really, it feels like, for one thing you can say for sure, is that this Chaos Storm is going to be ripping through the enemy team.
Has some good MR too, just to get a little bit more out of if he gets a Zeered, or actually even just a little bit of that fizz damage too, going to be helping him out.
I can't help but notice, don't like a Zia Sec, you don't like the Shurima Shuffle, a Zeered, that's just...
A Zeered. I like a Zeered Sec just fine. I don't like Shurima Shuffle because...
doesn't mean, it
doesn't
doesn't describe anything. Like, for example, slicing Maelstrom, what a great thing to say during a team fight. Shurima Shuffle sounds like a bad ice cream flavor. Also,
I really hate the lore, and I hate referencing the lore. I think that also when you name a play in esports terms at the professional level, I like Insect because it's actually named after a player and a point in LoL esports history.
And a ZS Execute because it's also a nod to the same player.
Yep. So I prefer that personally.
Samsung finally getting time onto that top turret with the Trinity Forcer will take it down, but obviously at the cost of the 3rd Dragons. Suddenly a 42-minute win condition being opened for KT in terms of the 5th Dragon. Oh boy.
Wow. Holy smokes.
Oh my goodness.
That was so much damage from Nagne. The burst was immense.
Oh my goodness.
Goodbye, Kuve. And here comes Eve. He's trying to get something out here, but he gets immediately bounced out. His Insect is just foiled. Gets a kick to prevent them from killing him, but that's all he could do. He's trying to finish off Nagne, but Peekaboo was there on the defensive headbutt.
That damage, that one rotation of spells murdered multiple people from Nagne. It's not quite what you hoped for in the early game, but damned if it wasn't close.
Wow, that was so massive. And KT, that happened so fast. Their coordination on that engage was instant.
Okay, OGN, 0.25 second replay, please, just to see the damage numbers will be disgusting in the replays. Let's just watch it. Let's see if we get the slow-mo, but...
I mean, Peekaboo just coming through here, and holy cow, there's just not even time to respond. Look at the coordination between Someday and Peekaboo right there to get the chain of knockups right on through.
And then just look, Kuve comes in. Kuve doesn't have the items to fight these team fights. He's dead as well. And Eve, look, he got them off himself, but pushed them towards the inhibitor.
I'm just so impressed by KT. They seem to know the exact timing on some of these engages, because that couldn't have been more perfectly done.
KT looking good. You know, that's the reality. Okay, maybe they won't go to Worlds, but they're certainly getting things together as we get to the latter parts of the season.
Well, they're making a strong case for it regardless of what happens. And they are looking for that playoff seed, and with this 2-0 victory, they will convincingly take 3rd place, which is a great place for them to be right now.
And not even out of the argument for the 2nd spot, okay? They won't be in pole position, but on this form, it doesn't look like they're going to be dropping too many games.
It's very important. If they can take the 2nd spot away, they're going to be in prime position when it comes to the Gauntlet too. If they have to qualify for the World Championship that way, because that's worth a lot of points. I mean, this is such an important tournament because the Gauntlet format basically means that you are going to be basically, the higher seed you take now, the better you'll do this season, but the better you'll also do in the gauntlet. Here we go, another great engage, and they're going to have to use the Emperor's Divide just to push people out right there. Someday is all over Kube, Exhaust already down, and double kill for Arrow, trying to chase this Fizz away. Not going to get too much, though, as Kube is able to escape in the end, but they are going to get a Baron as they take down the first two targets off of the engage.
Mobility spells means no penta call from Arrow this particular game. Has to be content with a double kill when we're talking about the likes of Lee Sin, Fizz, Braum, all with repositions. In fact, all 5 champions with those gap closes. But, you know, they were just waiting to push the trigger and finally Peekaboo, Righteous Glory into double headbutt ball.
Well, Samsung, they have to expect that, right? The turret's going down. Peekaboo had already popped his glory. You basically just disengage or you die right there. And
yeah, a little bit of both.
Yep, a little bit of both. They got half and half.
It's definitely not the type of half and half you want. It's more like chocolate ice cream. What's your ice cream flavor? I think we've had this discussion before, but I need to know.
Green tea.
Green tea ice cream?
Shocking.
Really?
I actually really like green tea ice cream. Are you a chocolate fan?
You know, I could go for a good vanilla, but chocolate, just like with the cookies as we described last time, great.
So Baron bait here from KT. They can pretty much take this whenever they want. They're trying to push up the mid lane. However, there is enough damage there to take out these super minions relatively quickly. A Zero turret going to go up to help with that wave clear. KT just needs to start the Baron though.
Some days just, you know, flashbacks to last game. Unkillable now that he has the Thorn Mail. It's more magic damage this time, but can run at Fury, and honestly, Fury has to run the other way and be zoned himself.
All right, and wow, going down immediately. Scory is caught on the outside of the pit. Can KT win this 4v5? They have control of the choke with the Chaos Storm, and that is an easy double kill for Nagne. So here come the rest of the kills. Crown gonna take it to a triple. Fury, the last man alive. Flash forward.
Doesn't get in Q range. It doesn't get that big burst of moon, so he can get it from the minion, though.
And now coming through.
More minions.
TP is here. Someday has the home guard, but that's not going to matter. Ace for Nagne as he finishes it off. And now KT Rolster just looking at the win here. 20-5 in kills in the end. Maybe they get one person back up or two with Eve by the time this goes down, but that is not going to be anywhere near enough damage to convince KT to leave the Nexus alone. And that'll be it, a 2-0 for KT Rolster. That'll put him in 3rd place in this league with a win over Samsung.
10-1-4 first game, 5-0-9 is victor in game 2. Nane has a good series, may not even win any MVPs, but KT in general, so together. We talked about it. Someday Nagne on the same wavelength, scoring Peekaboo for a few weeks now. In fact, ever since Peekaboo came into this lineup, on the same lineup. And Arrow, look, he's doing Arrow things on the likes of Civ.
Yeah, that's the question though, is how deep does this team go? Because when they get what they're good at, they are excellent, but you put them on something like Corki or another meta pick, and they can't really deliver in the same way. Sure, they won that game 1, and Arrow looked better, but Samsung